Okay, so last night I had a really interesting idea for how to sort of solve this problem that we're in because we've gotten to this area where we have like 23 errors. Fixing it is just tedious. It's not that great. So I had this idea. What if instead of structures as states, what if I had an enum as the potential different states? So what I mean by that, so if we come here to states, if I just switch this over to like a public enum state, and of course this would have to go away if I wanted to do this because it would be very upset with me. But then we have like the different states that we can be in. So we'd have our standing, like we could be standing, we could be we could be jumping, and we can be in air. And the in air part is the key because then we can have our logic on the actual just structures that we're storing the state in. So if we come back to player, for example, we store state as, we don't need to look at box dying state anymore. It's just going to be that that enum. And every single, let's say, I guess in run here, we could still do handle input on the state because we can have implementation on enums. So we could still have a handle input, and it can still return a. It could actually just update itself to be like whatever the new state is, or we could just return the new state to go in. It could be like the same type of thing. It returns an option with the new state that we then set it up as. That way, every time we run through it, we can check to see what our state is and what we should be doing. The jumping state should only be there for one frame, which would cause us to like jump up. I'm thinking if we do this, it's going to make it a little bit easier to implement. It won't be the object-oriented method of doing it, but it will keep the logic separated out. So we'll have the state, which all it needs is the data to determine, am I still want to be in the state? It's going to be the logic, which will be on the player, and then the data, of course, which will be separate. So I think that will be a better way of doing this. It will be some refactoring, but I think it will be better refactoring than what we're doing right now. So for example, if I was to go and do this, so we have this state here. This would mean that we don't need jumping state. So I can delete this. I did push this all up to GitHub. So if you wanted to sort of see this path that I went, you can just look at the commits as for each stream as I go through it. For standing state, we're also going to remove you. That also means I can go back if I ever want to see what I did here. And we're not going to have this trait state anymore. So what this really means, not going to have these other jumping anymore. Let's just go ahead and not even have that. Let's just say, like I'll want the commands eventually, but let's just say that we start with what the state is, and then we'll do some implementations on it. So we're kind of doing a soft reset on this. But here's the 3 states that we can be in. So if I save that, we come back to our main library. All right, so we have mod states, which, okay, so use states, state. And that should be it for you. Now in the player, we're going to use super states. We don't actually need any of this. We just need to use super states state. And then in here, our pub state is going to be the state. I'm actually not sure we're going to need this to be pub by the end of this. it might be able to be completely self-contained, which would be really nice. Now, when we create a new player, our state is going to be state running. Standing? Standing. And so when we do this this run here, we have this entire if let sum. So this goes away. All right, let's continue going through the errors that we have now and resetting them. So the name state must be defined. This is in players, super. So state data, do we not? State data come from? I don't think we need state data anymore. We have state and subject. Where is this? This is from the player, coming from super. The name state is defined multiple times. State re-imported here. I think we still need you as a subject, don't we? Yeah, we still need to use a subject. So why are you upset? Because I hadn't saved, that's why. All right, so state defined here multiple times. Let's just go ahead and redefine this. Let's rename you to possible states, just to make it so we don't conflict with anything. And you can be possible states enum. Okay, so in the main library, we have mod possible states. So then in here, we're going to have possible states, and we're going to bring in possible states. Unresolved import super states. Okay, so this isn't a player. Now this is going to be possible states, and we're just going to bring that in. We don't need to bring anything else in for that. Unresolved import super state. Oh, so in this case, we don't need you at all. Instead of state here, we're going to do possible states. Cannot find the player data has dined state data. Did I remove that? Where did state data come from? It's in the main library. Did I have like a mod state data? Or did I delete? I think I deleted that, didn't I? Because in player data. Oh, right, because I was starting to implement all of these, sort of like get these through here. And I don't think we're going to need you anymore. We're not going to have a state data. So possible. So our player data is just the player data. Okay, can I find type state, right? Because you're now a possible states. I have to wait for it to update before I like look at the next error here. It's just slightly slow, but we all knew that. Like Rust compilation is not the fastest in the world. Okay, mismatch type. Expect to struct player data. Found this box. So now I can remove the box, so I can unbox everything, and we just have the plain player data. So here we're going to have our state standing. So we're going to have possible states standing. No method named getWidth. Okay, so this is wherever we have player data get width. Actually, wherever we have player data get underscore, this could essentially just be back to like whatever we're trying to do here. You're not a method. Location as point. I guess like in this case, it's a location which is a vector 2, I want to say. So we're gonna have to convert this over. So this will be slightly different. We're gonna say point to new, and then self dot what is it? Data. Player data dot location dot x self dot player data dot location dot y. No method named height, so it's correct. That save you. No method named width. Save you. No errors. A whole bunch of warnings, but no errors. Let's see if everything works. We weren't even able to run the game yesterday at all. So we sort of like got ourselves back into a running state. I don't have the ability to jump at this point in time, but that's okay. I think we turned that off. But the game runs, so we've got that at least. Okay. Now we have our initial state with our player. So we're setting ourselves to possible states standing. Then we're going to go to run here, and what we want to do is so we want that handle input, and we want the update, essentially. Because there's the two different times. It's on handle input, it's going to decide whether or not we're going to sort of like stay in one of those states. So handle input on so we're going to handle input on state, and we're going to pass it into like new commands that are coming in. So let's do in our mod here, we're going to impl our possible states. So we're going to have a public function. All right. So you know what I realized also, this probably would be like player states, but basically could be one of these things. So public function, if we do like a handle input, we have a self, and then we're going to have a command coming in, and so we know that this command coming in is a reference to a commands. Okay, so use super commands. This is a reference to a commands. And we're going to return an option that has a possible states in it. Okay, so it's yelling at me because we haven't actually done that. But we can check ourselves, because I think we can say if let possible states standing. So if we are standing equals self, if we are standing and this command is jump. Chiroptical, good morning, hello. Do I walk through streams in a trance-like fashion? No? Although I haven't walked through a stream in like decades. At least many, many years. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in my dreams. Oh, you combined my name, Brooke and Brookserker. Oh my gosh, I didn't even get that that reference. That would be interesting. I'm gonna think about that probably every single time I like walk past and I see a small little, I guess like a creek, or a stream. I'm gonna think about that. Okay, so if we are standing, and if this, so we check to see, okay, if we're standing, and then also, can I do this? Can I do an and? I don't know if I can do two if-lets here, like together. How's the game programming going? I think I have a better way of doing the states management here, which is going to make it a little bit nicer than what we were going through yesterday. Also, how are you doing? Okay, so we have our possible states we're staying in. So if we are in a possible states, then we also want to check if let commands, because right, commands is, yeah, commands is also an enum like this with jump, reset command. So if we get the jump command, so if let jump command equals command. All right, so this is the two things here. You're going through the process of moving, so you could be better, but also can't complain. Yeah, moving sucks, but hopefully we don't move too often. And of course, as we get older, usually we tend to move less because less school, less other things. The job just we stick around in one place. So I mean, hopefully it's the last move for a while, until you choose not to be. Gosh, you hope this is the last big one. Yeah, it's gotten to the point now where if I move again, I might just hire people to do everything for me because it's too much. It's too much. Okay, so we are standing, and we've got we're jumping. So, if we're going to do this, now we want to return. We want to return the sum, and then we're going to return a new possible states, jumping. If we get through that and we haven't started jumping yet, then we want to return a none. And so this is going to be our handle input here. And so notice this works. So we can come back to our player, and we can do if let sum new state equals self dot state dot handle input, pass it a reference to the command. Then if it is something, we have our new state here. We can do self dot state equals new state. Now, you'll notice that this doesn't necessarily like cause us to jump. And that's going to be like what what we were trying to solve last time. This switches us over to the this new state for us. Everyone seems to be learning Rust, and you were over here learning Unison. I can't say I'm very familiar with Unison. Is it a new language? Is it like what? What is it? What's its call? Like what's the primary purpose of Unison? Okay, so this would switch us to have the new state. But we also want to, what is it? We want to start us jumping. So we have a jump force, don't we? Did we put that on the player data? We have the jump force here. We don't want to apply the force here. We still want to have all the logic for updating the state in the player. Do we have apply force? We do still have an apply force here on the player. So where's my run? Here it is. We also then want to say self.apply force self.player data.jump force. Expected reference. So reference. Cannot borrow self as mutable because it's also borrowed as immutable. Wait, is self? It's a mutable borrow here. Where are you? Apply force, cannot borrow. Immutable borrow occurs at line 54. Immutable borrow called used later on. Here every single time. I guess so. It might be better to do like an if a match on our state a little bit later and then do the force. Okay, so this just sets that. And then we're also going to want to do an update function to sort of remove us or out of that state. Okay, so back to Unison. It's a pure functional programming language written in Haskell that hopefully solve some issues with massively distributed computing. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's basically distributed computing. Is that going to be like the big giant sort of distributed servers? That is that what it's going to be maybe for, like scheduling them and or is it just like programming it code that'll be run on them? Either way, that sounds pretty cool. So we also want an update function. So update is going to, well, just sort of update and figure out what we want to do with this. Yeah, I think if I could spawn 800 nodes to build a single program, what would I build? Oh, interesting. So in our mod here, we have a pub function, and we're going to run update. So every time we update here, so self, we're not necessarily going to have any commands for this right now. Let's sort of like do that as we go through this. So we have option. Then we're going to return an option of possible states. Okay, so if we're in update, so if we are in jump, then so if we are in the jump state, we want to now switch. That's it. We just switch over to in air state. So if let possible states jumping equals self, we now want to return some possible states in air. Otherwise, return none. It's far from that goal, but you're trying to get in on the ground floor. Well, I mean, it sounds like that's a good place to start. So good luck with getting into that ground floor, and I wish you the best of that. So now if we run this update, our jumping can only last for 1 frame, possibly less than 1 frame. But come back to our player. We have a run here. So this is where we switch the state. And now I know it's not going to be a super great idea to do this right this second, but let's just write this here. So let's new state equals self.state.update, and that's that. Now we have this possible states coming in, self.state equals new state. Okay. Now, of course, we switch to jumping here, and then we search to in air. Here is where we're going to want to actually implement that jump. And what we can do, we could match off of this, although we're only going to match for 1 arm right now. So I think another if let makes sense. So if let, and this is going to be possible states jumping. So if we are jumping equals self.state, then we're going to want to implement, like do that entire force. So we're going to say self.apply force, self. Oh, is that what it is? We can't like self.player data dot jump force. Need to be a reference, right? Because if I try to get a reference to this, that's going to be a little bit weird that I'm doing that here. So I think that I have to not do a reference to it, which means apply force, which is here. We're not going to take in a reference. It's just going to be our vector too, and then that makes it happy. So let's see if we can jump. Oh, we have 4 errors. I didn't even realize that. Mismatch types. Okay, so where is it? Okay, so a reference to self.gravity. So event handler for game sets, self.force. Right, okay, so at this point in time, everything needs to, we're not doing references anymore for this. Here, you're not a reference. Player jump. We don't even have, we're not going to use this anymore like that. Okay, no errors. Let's see if we can jump. I can jump, but only once. I can jump once. So let's think about where we are with that. Our state starts as actually our state starts as in the air, doesn't it? Because we're in the air, we're falling down, and so like this circle thing, right? We're in the air, we then hit the ground. When we're on the ground, so we're standing, then we can start jumping. So standing moves to jumping, jumping moves to in air can move to standing. So to begin with, we should not start at standing, we should start in air. Because it turns out we start up there and we fall down. Now, when we are falling, So when we're updating here, we need to know if it's time for us to switch out. So we know that if we started jumping, well, it's time for us to return. We're now in the air. But if we've impacted the ground, then we should also switch to standing. So we should take in here the data for like the player data, which I think we can do. So use super commands. I think we can take in the player data. We can either take in player data or we can take in like the location. But then even if we do that, we don't necessarily have like the screen width and all that stuff. Because if we have player data coming out of here, now if player data is out of here, that means the main library needs to be aware of player data, which not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Also, the other thing is player, these are really states for the player, isn't it? So before I do this, let's save you. Here we are in possible states. Let's actually change this around. Let's move you up into player. And I'm going to move player up into player. All right, so you mod are going to rename you to player states. Player, we're going to rename you to mod. All right, so now we're going to fix all the errors that caused. All right, so unresolved module. So right, because possible states is no longer here. Plus, also, I'm not sure the main library is going to need to be aware of this anymore. So that goes away. Let's see, what's next? File not found for module possible states. I need to save for it. Updates. All right, so possible states doesn't need to be here anymore. Save. Use super. So in this mod, we're no longer going to need to get possible states out of here. Cannot find type possible states in scope. Well, that means we have player states now. So we're going to do a mod player states. That also means in our player states, we're going to change this from possible states to player states. We can come back to our this mod, so mod player states. Use, where did I? You need to do that. So okay, use player states, and now every time we have possible states here, it is now player states. All right, no errors. So we're back to good again. Now, the idea is that we're in the air, we're falling down. So the player states needs to be aware of the player data, but it also needs to be aware of the arena, like the screen height. So those are the two things that it needs to be aware of. So first of all, we're going to use, if we go to super, that goes to the main module here, and from there, we're going to go into the player data. And we should just have access to it now. Okay, so in update, we're going to take in the player data, which is going to be a reference to player data. We're also going to take in the screen height. which is going to be an F32. All right, so to begin with, if we're in the jumping state, we're now in the air state. Okay, fine. If we're in, and so this is now where we get a check to see which state we're in. We're going to do different things. So if we're in the standing state, then we're not really going to do anything, are we? If we're in the jumping state, we're going to switch to the in-air state. And if we're in the in-air state, we're going to check to see if we're below the ground, touching or below the ground, and then have us go back into the standing state. So this sounds like a match to me. So let's refactor this. This is basically going to be okay, so we're going to return a match on self. So if it is a player states, all right, so we'll start at the top here. If we're in the standing state, I guess if we're in the jumping state, we are going to return a sum player state, player states, and in air. All right, easy enough. If we are in the in air state, we're going to check to see if we're below the ground. So if we are in player states, in air. All right, so now here's where we'll probably do a little tiny bit of logic. Are we now below the ground? So so we have the screen height, so that's going to be the bottom of the screen. So if the player, if player data dot our location, that's the top left of the player, so that plus so dot y plus the player height. So player data dot height. If that combined together is greater than or equal to the screen height, then we are impacting, and it's time for us to now switch to the standing state. So we're going to return a sum player states standing. Okay, do I need to hit return if maybe missing? Oh, otherwise return nothing. None there. Now, so that's the in-air state. If so if we're jumping, we switch to in-air. If we're in the air, we check to see if we're impacting the ground. If we're not in the air, so that's going to be the final one, is now the standing state, we're not going to do anything at all. So if player states, if we're standing, then we're going to return a none. Mismatch types expected, nothing found enum option. Well, there's this option here. Do I need to return off of you? I guess I need to return early like this. Oh, could I get away with not doing return if I do an else, actually? What happened to this closing Oh, weird. Where did you come from? Else, move you up like that. Don't do that. Yeah, okay, this works. Where I can say, okay, if we're this, return some player standings, else return none. Okay, so then in our updates for mod, the player, we have run here. So now we have our update. We need to pass in the command. No, not the command. We need to pass in the reference to the player data. So self.player data. And we also need to pass in the screen height. So we need that here. Must purchase more jump to proceed. Oh yeah, we're totally gonna have to put in a microtransactions into this game, right? Like you get one jump, and then if you want another jump, you're gonna have to pay 99. I think 99 cents is a good price for that, right? Let's see, and self the player data, and then the screen height. That should make you happy here. And then we set the new state to whatever that is. So this is going to be auto updating our states for us, like constantly. So first of all, when we get the inputs, we then change the state, and then just our normal course of running, we change the state as well. And then of course we can jump if we're in the right, like if we're in the jumping state, then we apply that force. What else do we need to do? Well, we have some errors now. So here on player run, we've taken the command, but we now also need to pass in the screen height, which is this arena height. And that's it. Let's see if this works. Now I could jump multiple times again. So there you go. I can't jump forever. I can only jump once. So that's looking pretty good. Now we turned off the collision detection. So let's turn that back on. And I think I did that somewhere. Did I do that in the main library? In new here. Yes, I removed the observer. So I didn't have the player register itself as, well, I didn't have the game state register itself as an observer of the player. Okay, so if I do that, then we're gonna run again, and now the game should just work. And we're now doing states. I need to make this maybe a tiny bit slower for myself. We're gonna come to the, what is it? It's the obstacles, I think. The obstacles are moving. So in the obstacles, we have a velocity, and so we have -5. Let's set that to like -3 or negative like 2.5. Half their speed. Oh wait, I can't do 2.5.0. What am I thinking? It's already a float. Just use floats. Okay, this is so much nicer. Our jump now needs to be maybe a little bit slower. So let's just increase our jump force so we could jump a tiny bit higher. So like maybe -12. So now I can jump over these things. It's all fine. Slowly the game increases in speed. Float. Yeah, I mean, we're not using floats. We're using version numbers for all of our, like, for velocity. That's cool, right? Also, Bare Knuckle Waffle, good morning. Let's see. I guess maybe instead of this increasing this to like, we can do -7 and where's our gravity? I think that's in, is that in game? Where are we storing gravity? Right here. So gravity is y is 0.5. If I do this like 0.3, a little bit slower, I should hang in the air a little bit longer. Now it's easier to play. As they move forward, you sort of like get used to it before you back. Ooh, that's back doesn't work anymore. Either that or I don't have like a back. Huh. Well, that's not backspace. Whatever button that is isn't correct. Where did I say that? That's the not possible states. It's the input handler, isn't it? So our new, yeah, I have back here. I don't think it's back. I think there's backslash. Because I don't see like a backspace. So this maybe is backspace, but it wasn't working on my keyboard. I can do something like, I don't want to do escape. Maybe enter. Return, let's try return. Let's see if return is something that I, no, okay. That return doesn't work. Do I have another return? So my keyboard, I don't have a numpad. So I can't do like the numpad. I guess this says enter. Like it actually says enter on the keyboard. So my guess is it's not return. I know it's a little bit weird. Although I'm wondering if I broke it. And like it's not doing the, is this based upon state now? I don't remember. If I do something simple like A, let's make this A. We'll go ahead and die. Okay, so neither Shift A nor A works for this. So I've broken whatever input handler that I have here. So let's trace this. We have handle. We know it's key code A for right now. We have handle input, mute cons. It takes it in the context. Press keys contains the jump command key code. Then the commands is jump, otherwise no command. Wait a second. If keyboard pressed keys contains the jump key code, then the command is jump. Otherwise, no command. Wait, did I not implement getting out of this screen? Do we have a command? So we have commands. It's not that. Oh, here's commands. So here's reset game as a command. It's not being used. I could swear I was able to do this before. Oh, you might be hearing the garbage truck out back. Let's see. How did I manage to break this so badly? Well, before I fix this, everything is saved here. Let's go ahead and open up Get Kraken, and I'm going to push this code up. Okay, using state for jumping for player. And push. Okay, our reset game command is not being used at all. So I'm thinking maybe as like part of my refactoring, I accidentally deleted like some piece of code that was using that. Because we can say like, okay, the reset game button. Well, that's setting where the reset game button is. So like display that to the screen. So I guess let's think about like where we want to put that and where it runs. We know that here we have in our update, we have our game state, playing, game over, and help. Oh, look at this. This is all commented out. Why are you commented out? Okay, so if let some command self input handler handle game input. What are you upset about? No method named handle game input found for struct input handler in the current scope. There is handle input. If let some command, which is unknown. Oh, okay. So like I never finished this part of like the command. I didn't realize that. All right, so handle input here takes in the context, and it doesn't choose what we're going to be pressing. So we have this, if the pressed keys, we're either going to do commands jump or commands no command. And in commands, we have reset game as well. In here, did we have, where was all that code for resetting the game? Oh, reset game command. Here's this. We have the reset game command, which then we can execute. So if I undo this, there is no game command. Yeah, okay. So apparently I was in like the middle of a refactor and completely forgot about this. I'm wondering if I need to like reset the state like for what is going on here. But like here is what happens when we reset. So if I just say that we're implementing reset game command. And we have this execute, which takes in all these things. Now, if we come back to our input handler, that's command jump, commands no command. I guess Here's our commands. We have the reset game commands. I had commands up. So we have this enum commands. So reset game. I wonder if we're going to want to do just the same sort of thing that we're doing with the player here. We don't have necessarily reset game commands as its own struct that does its own thing. We instead say, okay, in the main library, give us what the command is going to be, and then we'll figure it out. So we don't do necessarily this like entire execute thing here. So this is going to be, we're probably going to want to match off of it, or at least in the game over state, in commands, we can have jump that can only be done while playing, reset game, and of course, no command. So we're going to have the choice of no command or reset game. So that should be a match. So let's go into handle input and fix this. So we probably want to match against this now. So we want to return a match of keyboard pressed keys. Wait, can I do that? Contains. Oh no. I have to check each one specifically. That's what, so it can't be a match. All right, so this checks. We're going to return command jump. And then we're going to have an else if. Do this entire thing. And now instead of the jump command key code, we're going to have the reset game command key code. And in this case, we're going to return, I guess in this case, we don't need, we could just do this. Don't have return. This is going to be commands, reset game, otherwise command, no command. Is it if else? No, else if. Oh. Suppose bracket would, how did I get so many brackets in the wrong spot? Okay. Save you. You go away. All right, so we're fine here now. We're going to have the jump, reset command, or no command. That's what's going to possibly come out. In our library here, in our game over, we're going to get handle the input. We pass the context, the immutable reference to the context, and then we're going to get some command. So mismatch type expected, enum commands command. Wait a second. We just return the commands. There's not some if lat or whatever. We can just straight up match against this. We can match you. And inside of here, we have commands. So if we don't care about jump command. We care about the reset game. Okay, so if we're going to have reset game. Wait, is this the only command we can do in this state? It is. So we can do an if let commands reset game equals this, then here's where we need to reset the game. Now we have this reset game function here. I'm thinking we need to put this back. So I'm going to copy you, and we're going to put you back in, I guess, the main library. So instead of execute, we'll make you reset game. We have access to the player already off of self. I think we have access to everything in here. It's going to be mute self. All right, so we're going to do self.player.reset their location. Our wrapped score, so we need to reset the wrapped score. Reset the first obstacle. Reset the second obstacle. Reset the game state. Let's see, the player reset location. Now, okay, so we have reset game there. Now we call it. So if that command is reset game, self dot reset game. Okay, we can't wait. There's no errors. I guess we didn't change anything else. Hola, Chantilly. Good morning. So let's try running it, see what happens. I accidentally changed keyboard type. Cargo run. I can still jump. Reset game by pressing A. And it resets the game. All right. So we were able to fix this too. And the A button works again. So let's go ahead and try changing that once again. So an input handler, we have our default. This is key code A. I want to go back to backspace. I want to see whether or not that is backspace properly. It is. Okay, that's exactly what I thought that it was, but I guess like I didn't realize that I had come close to, but not actually implemented the reset game. So we did two state-based things today. We fixed the player state. So we have the falling state, we have the standing state, we have the jumping state, and then we have, I guess like falling and in air is the same thing. So we only jump for less than one frame, really. Within one frame, we start jumping. That applies the force upwards, and then we immediately switch to in air. In air then runs the physics on the player. Which, are we actually doing that? Because that would be an optimization that we could do for the player essentially. So in player here, in run, yeah, so see here we have this player data velocity. We only need to do this if we're in the air. We don't need to try to constantly force ourselves down below the ground. So here we have handle the states. Okay, so if we're jumping, we do this. I think we can now switch this to a match. So we can do match on self.state. We do player states jumping. We then apply the force like this. Otherwise, if we are in player states in air, we want to apply, let's see, these things. And then finally, if we have player states, what's the last one? We have jumping in air and standing. If we have standing, we don't really want to do anything. So there's nothing. If I do that, everything still works exactly as expected. Ooh. After we reset the game, we're stuck hanging in air. Why is that? Because I don't think we reset our player state, do we? In the main, I just closed the library instead of switching to it. In the main library, we do reset location, but we don't reset like other things too. So if on the player, here's this reset location. All we're doing is resetting our starting location. What if we have a reset function? So pub, actually, what if I just rename you to reset? Now we're going to reset the location, and we're also going to reset. So self dot state equal to player states in air. So if we do that, then in the main library, we're just going to call reset. Oh, there is a couple more errors here. Player dot reset here. Wait a second, I'm not even using you. I don't even need this reset game command anymore. So goodbye, move away. We don't need you anymore. Okay. We can jump. We don't. Okay, our points are working. I thought that wasn't working for a second. That was a little bit odd at the beginning. When I died and I came back, oh, I'm up here, but I think it has like extra velocity because I fall really fast. It's like a game done quick trip. Yeah, it's a speed run strategy. I am after 8:15 though, so I don't have any more time, but I think I can clean up some of these warnings. And oh, the other thing is we can really quickly on the player here to sort of fix that entire velocity thing. We can just set self dot acceleration. Player data dot acceleration times equals 0.0, just to make sure that like that is reset. And I think that will fix the velocity of sort of falling. So I think if I die while falling, yeah, everything is normal there now. All right, let's go ahead and fix some of these warnings. Unused import 0.2, so player data doesn't need that anymore. Save you. Unused import color, we don't need you anymore. And that's it. No more errors. We have a clean build now. So one last time of running this. And there we go. We're running at a cool 200 frames per second. And everything works as expected. All right.